And so, based on his short presentation, he brings up several points. That not only do we have specific ways that we identify ourselves, we have ways that the state identifies us, usually giving us a driver's license that has certain information, biometrical information, our name, our date of birth, we have social security number. And so that's one aspect. And when we get that, he mentions that there's a level of trust because when Florida gives me my driver's license, which is going to prove who I am, they don't know to whom I'm going to show this. I can show this to the TSA to get onto a plane. I can show it to a police officer who has stopped me. I can show it to someplace I'm purchasing alcohol to show that I'm over 21. And so all these people that I'm showing it to have to put their trust in the state of Florida that they have verified the information to know that what they put on my driver's license is the correct information. And so all of this means that there's huge levels of trust going around when we're dealing with identity. So how do we define who we are? First, there's a lot of things that define us. There's not just one thing. The choices we make, the values we have, the beliefs, our appearance, our ethnicity, practices and habits that we have, our work, our hobbies, our friends, our family, our interests, social, sports, athletic, etc. Objects, possessions we own, creations, things that we do and create. All of these things are aspects of our identity. We're also going to look at, over the course of the next 2 weeks, what is belonging and how does it relate to identity. Think about the notions of family and community and nationality and religion and class, culture, friendship, exclusion, being a part of something versus being excluded from it. This is going to be an important aspect, not only for us to look at who we are, but to look at who the doctor is. Because the doctor rarely travels alone. He's just usually part of some type of community. And I just like this particular image. We're all made up of 1,000 little stories. What are yours? And I thought this is a really kind of great way to look at the doctor because he is made up of lots of stories. And that's what we're sharing each week is a new story that he's bringing to us. And you have to think of all the times that he's off screen, that he's sharing adventures and doing things that we don't know about yet. And so all of those stories is making up who the doctor is. Basis for identity, we do have some things, such as genetics. Your DNA is part of who you are. Your psychological makeup, the way that you think, the way that you process information, the way that your brain is put together, that is part of who you are. And the environment that you grow up in. That has a huge impact on who we are as well. So these are some of the things that go into making us who we are and that sets our identity. I am going to go through and talk about several different people who have thought about these questions as well. René Descartes, and I'm not going to go into great detail. There's a lot more. I could do a whole course just on Descartes. But I'm going to just break it down to the very basic things that you need in order to understand how we're going to apply this to the doctor. In his time frame, there was a whole group of people who were skeptics. They were radical skeptics, and they doubted everything. They doubted our existence. They doubted who we are. They doubted God. They doubted just everything. And he wanted to be able to go to them and say, you can't doubt everything because. And you needed to come up with that because. And after a long time of thinking, he came up with the notion of the cogito ergo sum, which from Latin means I think, therefore I am. And this was his response to the skeptics who say, we don't believe. He said, I think, therefore I am. And that is an important step forward in identifying who we are. Because he's saying, if I am deceived, then I still must exist. I cannot doubt the truth of the statement, I exist. The fact that I am sitting here talking to you, I am breathing, I am thinking, I am seeing, I am hearing, I am smelling, I am speaking English, I'm explaining Descartes. These are all evidences that I exist at this moment. And so it's impossible for me to doubt that. And then he says, take it further. I can't think that I'm not thinking, because then I'm thinking. So I can't sit here and say to myself, well, Professor Fields, as you're talking to them about Descartes, you're not really thinking at all. Because as soon as I start questioning myself if I'm thinking, I am thinking. And if I am thinking, then I must exist. So in order to even try and doubt my own existence by saying, do I really exist? I've created a thought. And thought leads us to show that we exist. And so he said, this is the answer to the people who want to say no to everything, to just negate everything. Is that we can't give them an answer for every problem they come up with. But the problem of how do you prove your existence is by the simple act of thinking, using the brain that we were given. And that is why he was so important to Western civilization. And we still have this idea of Cartesian theory and Cartesian dualism coming from René Descartes, because he has impacted us so much with this very simple statement, I think, therefore I exist. I think, therefore I am. He says, I know with certainty that I exist, but what am I? Am I my body? No, because I can doubt the existence of my body, whereas I cannot doubt the existence of myself. And so with his dualism, he did solve one problem by saying, I know for certainty that I exist because I'm thinking. But what is that I? Who is I? What is I? And that is the problem. And he comes up at the end with, I am a thinking thing. A thing that doubts, understands, affirms, denies, wills, refuses, imagines, and has sensation. So I am a thinking being. And so it's through thinking that I prove my existence. Very quickly, I'm going to go through John Locke. He added on some aspects to identity. He basically said that we change over time. That the John Fields at 2 was not the same John Fields at 5, was not the same John Fields at 8, was not the same John Fields at 18, was not the same John Fields at 25, etc. As we grow up, we change. Our body changes, our mind changes, our personality changes. And so all of these changes impact our identity, because we tend to think of our face, the way we look. That's one aspect of our identity. It's our physical identity. That if we look and we say, I know what Brad Pitt looks like, so when I see him, I can identify him because I know what he looks like. But if Brad Pitt doesn't look the same, he's taken on a new disguise, but he's still the same person, just doesn't look the same. Is he still the same person? And this is what Locke is saying, is that we do change over time. What changes certainly doesn't stay qualitatively identical. It doesn't have the same properties at all times. But we also say that we remain one and the same person through our changes. So the John at 2, 5, 8, 18, although he changes, he's still John Fields. He was still me. It's just me in different aspects of myself through time. And this notion of personal identity is a form of numerical identity, and this is important to what we're going to be doing a lot of over the next little bit. We will continue this in the next section on the problems of identity.